Landlords in Omaha, Nebraska were shocked and surprised when their Airbnb guests refused to leave and didn't pay them rent. But the guest was shocked and surprised to find out that in Omaha, Nebraska, they are not protected by landlord tenant laws. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News.
David and Patty North wanted to be more like innkeepers, making an investment townhome into an Airbnb type of rental, but a guest couple wouldn't check out.
He's a guest.
A guest in our home.
And who's no longer welcome. And after he failed to pay and I contacted an attorney, that's when we've learned that this man's done this to other people before.
Booking and paying for the townhome for a week in August through Airbnb, Roberto Arcadu kept asking to stay longer.
He had sick family in town. He was here for that. He's moving here, so he's trying to purchase a house. Those types of stories, and we're like, yeah, we'll help you out. You just continue to pay.
The Norths say Arcadu stopped paying October 18th, but he and his wife wouldn't leave. Since they operate an Airbnb, the Norths say they didn't have tenants, but guests who overstayed their welcome, so they called police to have the trespassers removed. But on Monday morning, the Arcadus still reside here.
The officers said the rules on Airbnbs are fuzzy.
But in Douglas County Court, a judge made it clear Arcadu and his wife are not protected by landlord tenant laws, so the North's attorney has started the removal process.
All right, so I have an interesting article for you today, and it's coming out of my hometown of Omaha, Nebraska. So I always talk about you should invest where you are treated the best, where you have the most property rights, where they treat landlords with respect, and we don't have to go through all the ridiculous nonsense that can happen to us. Okay, it happens to all of us, no matter where we live. We deal with bad tenants, we deal with evictions, we deal with unexpected costs, and the problem I have is that they put laws in place in certain localities that basically make it even harder for us to deal with these problems, especially if you're a small landlord with, minimal emergency reserves, and you have to depend on basically the luck of the draw when it comes to selecting your tenant, that person's not going to screw you over. So I read this story, and it was happening here in Omaha, and it's about an Airbnb guest who refused to leave and didn't pay rent. Now, I've covered stories like this before, and they're usually in places like California or New York, where the tenant protections are extremely strong, and they force the landlords to go through the entire eviction process, right? Which makes them have to spend thousands of dollars on legal fees. Meanwhile, they're losing thousands of dollars in lost rental income, and then they have to deal with damages, etc., after they finally are able to get the tenant removed. And in some cases that can take months or years, but that's not the case here. Okay, and that's what I find interesting. The reason I bring this article up is because I wanted to give an example to other people to let them know, hey, there are places where you still can get these sort of property rights, and this is the reason why I invest here in the Midwest and not on the coasts. Okay, so before I get into the article, go ahead, hit the like, subscribe button, maybe leave a comment down below and let me know what you think. If you have experience in your city with this sort of thing, or your state or municipality, right? Would an Airbnb guest who refused to leave, would they be considered a tenant or not? Okay, would you have to go through the eviction process, or could you get this person removed as like a trespasser? I'm just curious what the rules are for the different places throughout the country. I don't know the laws for everywhere. I only tell you the stories, and I'm more familiar with the areas where I invest. So this is an interesting situation. I don't, even though the landlord is able to get this tenant up out of their property, I wouldn't wish it upon anyone. It just sucks because they're still going to face a lot of losses. They've already lost thousands of dollars, and I'll get into more of the details as we go through this article. So this article is coming from WOWT.com, and it says, Omaha property owners say short-term rental guests won't leave. When the case over the Airbnb-style agreement went to court, they found out the people they say owed them $6,000 owed $76,000 to another place they refused to vacate. So basically, these landlords, these property owners, or hosts, as they call them in Airbnb and short-term rental world, they found out that, hey, This is a person who's basically a serial scammer. Okay, they go around from place to place and they owe thousands of dollars to other property owners, and they basically got screwed over. So yeah, this is kind of a bad situation because you aren't given the opportunity to do the same kind of thorough tenant screening when you're renting out to short-term rental tenants as you are when you're dealing with long-term tenants. So it's possible that you could put somebody up in your unit as a short-term renter and they could completely screw you over like this person did here. So anyway, let's get into the article. The owners of a short-term rental property have fought to remove guests who wouldn't leave, saying they're owed weekly payments while losing new bookings. The case went to court, where they found out their guest had been accused of doing this before. Rather than landlords, David and Patty North wanted to be more like innkeepers, making an investment townhome into an Airbnb type of rental. But a guest couple wouldn't check out. He's a guest who is no longer welcome, Patty North said, and after he failed to pay and contacted an attorney, that this man has done this to other people before. So yeah, like I said, serial scammer. You just are the latest victim, and it's fortunate that you are a property owner here in Omaha, Nebraska, and not in a place like Los Angeles or New York City, because you might have to just suck up the losses. That's all I can say about that. Now, they said they didn't want to be landlords, so they got into the short-term rental thing, which, I can understand that. Being a long-term landlord, it is not for everyone. And, when they originally started pushing towards short-term rentals, they were a lot more profitable. Okay, people were making really, really big money, and some people still are. I've talked to a couple of people that I know who are renting short-term rental or running short-term rentals, and they aren't making the money like they used to, and some of their properties just are unprofitable at this point, and that's why they're considering selling. But the whole market has changed, the whole dynamic has changed, and I think it's become oversaturated. I'm really glad, just a little while back, last year, in fact, in 2022, I had thought about turning one of my units in one of my duplexes into a short-term rental, and fortunately, I decided against it. I just don't know, how short-term rentals work well enough in order to be able to make it profitable. I know how long-term rentals work, and it turned out being a good idea, and I'm glad that I did that. So anyway, let's continue. Booking the condo for a week through Airbnb, Robert Arcadu kept asking the Norths to stay longer. He had sick family in town. He was here for that. He's moving here, so he's trying to purchase a house. Those types of stories, David North said. Yeah, we'll help you out. You just continue to pay. The North said Arcadu stopped paying October 18th, but that he and his wife wouldn't leave. Since they operate an Airbnb, the Norths say they didn't have tenants, but guests who overstayed their welcome. So they called police to have the trespassers removed. But on Monday morning, the Arcadis still reside there. So yeah, they consider, because they said, oh, listen, these aren't tenants, these are guests, okay? And so therefore we shouldn't have to go through the regular eviction proceedings, right? And so these people have been in there since October 18th, so about 5 weeks at this point, and they probably have accrued quite a bit of debt that they owe these property owners, these hosts. I call them landlords because in reality, a lot of the times that's what these people are. They might be short-term landlords, but I know a lot of people, they don't like that terminology. The officer said the rules on Airbnb are fuzzy, Patty North said, but in Douglas County Court, a judge made it clear that Arcadu and his wife are not protected by landlord-tenant laws. So the North's attorney has started the removal process. But collecting $6,000 for unpaid weekly rent and lost bookings means getting in line with others also owed money. He knows how to game the system and stay in a property and not pay rent, attorney Michael Polk said. So what it sounds like is the police, they were fuzzy on it, okay? They didn't know exactly, okay, is this something that falls under landlord tenant laws or not, right? So unfortunately, these property owners still had to take this thing to court, but the judge said, hey, this is, cut and dry. These people are not tenants. You don't have to evict them. They can be removed. And that's exactly what they're doing right now. And like I said, this is the reason why I invest in a place like Omaha, because I do not want to have to evict somebody who isn't a tenant. But that's exactly the position that people, are put in when they are dealing with squatters and they're dealing with, guests of an Airbnb and all this nonsense. It would be so easy to prove that, hey, these people, they're not tenants, and yet so many municipalities, they treat landlords like we're just garbage and like we should just suck it up, pay these people's bills for them. Well, these people are nothing but thieves, in my opinion. They go in, they want something for free, and they have no intention of paying for it. Well, guess what? If you take something for free, you don't pay for it. That's called stealing. It's pretty simple. It's not a landlord tenant issue, it is theft. And so these people need to be taken to jail. Period. That's my personal opinion. I know everyone doesn't agree with me on that, but when I hear about these stories where people are losing tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars, that's it's awful. It's absolutely awful, and I wouldn't wish that upon anybody. So these property owners are out $6,000, but they really they dodged a bullet because they could have lost so much more. And they said that these tenants, they actually owe other people over $130,000, other people where they've tried this same exact scam. Now, fortunately, they live in Omaha, Nebraska, and this is not an offense where these people could stay for a long period of time, because if they did, man, if they did live in a place like California or New York, they'd be screwed.